Can I just ask a quick question? Why is it that borderline hentai anime cannot say the word sex, but for some reason this series that lacks the normal cliche tropes, especially fan service, can use the word sex? But why can this series do it but others cannot? Just, can I ask that quick question? Because when you have a word like sex pop up in a borderline hentai show, they stumble on it, like, that's what they do. They like, see, and they can't even say shit. I'm like, what? How can this series do that? It blows my fucking mind. Anyways, Demi-chan. Episode 3. Hell yes, this series has continuously surprised me week by week. Gotta say, I mean, this might be my favorite that is not a continuation. This might be my favorite. Just because, yeah, the characters, just the main character alone, the teacher, being able to discuss things with his students, and it doesn't feel awkward. He's just asking, like a biology teacher, just wanting to know more about their bodies, and for instance, how they're demis, and how they, work in society. It's very fascinating, and the way he talks about certain things like this, it makes a hell of a lot of sense why he would ask these questions, and he doesn't push so far to where it becomes awkward, where it's just something like you shouldn't try to ask these type of questions. It's just very offensive if you do. And the way his character is written, it makes it for a very interesting watch, especially when he's talking to someone like, our vampire, Hikari, when, he's talking to her, and, he's stating, like, okay, so how is, a kiss and a, blood sucking for you? Like, what's the comparison? Is, kissing, more than blood sucking, or is blood sucking, after kissing, and is it, before or after sex? And I like the way he states that, because he wants to just honestly know the meaning behind it, because, it might be some form of sexual act, and he's just curious what that means for a vampire. And you gotta love how Hikari, the way she was talking about it, like, she's like, in the past, I did do it before just once with a boy, and then the way it's hinted at is that it is way above a kiss in her eyes. It is definitely above, but it's not above sex, apparently. So when you think about it like that, you're like, huh, it's just very fascinating the way the series wants to dive into stuff like this, wants to dive in to some of these little characteristics, and the way the teacher goes about it, it's actually very realistic. It doesn't seem like he's pushing too far. It doesn't seem like he's trying to be a pervert. He's just asking questions as an actual biology teacher. And so, well done, Demi-chan, well done. So, with that all being said, let's talk about one of the main focused characters of this episode, which would be our Succubus. I think her name is Sato? I could be wrong about that, but I think her name is Sato. I'm just going to call her Succubus for now, in case I don't want to make any mistakes or anything with the name. So, our Succubus of, Demi-chan, she has the main spotlight of this episode, and we get to see how she feels about herself, to the way she interacts with others around her, and what type of life she lives. And when you think of a succubus, especially in an anime, you think of someone that, seduces so many men and women alike, and makes many fall for her, and then eventually, there's a lot of fan service wrapped around this character. And I mean, with succubus type characters, normally anime tend to go down that route. A lot of fan service is focused on that character, because it is a succubus. That's a big, freaking crazy, demon that, can seduce men, seduce women. And when you think about something like that, you would expect fan service from any type of, any type of anime or manga. But we didn't really get that. I mean, we got some, but it wasn't, like, as much as you would see. I mean, honestly, it was very normal and even below average what I expected, especially from a succubus of all things. And the way that was handled, I'm like, okay, they're really trying to tackle this in a different way, showing how she feels about, people, getting sexual desires of her when they look at her, touch her, because of, how she is a succubus. And when you see the life she lives, she tries to avoid people. She doesn't want to be around anyone, because if they, come in contact with her, they'll automatically get sexual desires, fall in love with her, and it wouldn't be true romance in her eyes. And I respect that. I really do. The way she goes about it is really realistic. She's like, obviously, I could have a good romance, a relationship. That's what she states. I'm a succubus, and if anyone, touches me or whatever, holds my hand, they'll get romantic feelings for me. And she's like, I could probably have a relationship. But she's like, is that really love? Is that true love? Just, using my powers, my succubus-like powers, to be able to make someone fall in love with me. Is that really romance? And will the person truly love me for me, but instead just love me because of my powers, and that's activating on them? And I like that, depiction of her, how she views herself, and how she views how her powers affect others around her, and how she doesn't want to come in contact with anyone, and also how she doesn't want to pass out near anyone as well, because if she falls asleep next to anyone, and if they're having a dream as well, she can actually enter the dreams and give them sexual dreams. And that's a really fascinating, I guess, entry into her character, because, I mean, some of these things, the way she tries to avoid people, she lives out, like, in the countryside with her own house, you see she's really isolated, she has no one around her. It just shows she lives a very lonely life, and I feel very sorry for her. And I mean, if you think about it, it's funny that she is a succubus of all things, and she's in an anime, and she is a lonely person. She has no one around, and the reason for it is because she wants to make sure she doesn't mess with anyone. She doesn't want to tamper with their feelings or mess with them, and I respect that about her character, and I do hope that as the series continues on, we get to see some form of relationship with Sato and our main male character form. I mean, I really like that. I ship those two characters together. I mean, I know this series shouldn't be just about shipping or anything, but I ship those two characters together just because of the personality she has, but also how our teacher is. I feel like he could fall in love with her for who she is instead of just for how she is and her powers as well. So, yeah, I feel like that's a very likely possibility. But regardless of that, though, I do like how the main male character is able to calm himself. He's able to actually, control his sexual desires, even when he is faced with someone like a succubus. And the way he hid that, and he still acted relatively calm to her, and then he left, and then he's like, holy shit, my heart and all that. I like how he's able to calm himself. It was really pleasing to see, just to see how he was able to do something like that in this episode. So with all that thrown to the side, let's talk about the Snow Woman. So the Snow Woman's having her own conflict in this episode, and judging by the conclusion of the episode, next week's episode is probably going to focus on the Snow Woman, Yuki. Focus on her and her issues, more about, her, powers as, Snow Woman. I feel like that's going to be kind of dived into more in next week's episode, judging by the way, this episode built it up and concluded like it did, and how the sensei walked up and, was talking to her, like, what's going on, and she was very sad. Obviously, she's getting bullied, and she's very upset about it, and, I mean, I feel like more things are going to be dived into about her character. She's probably going to, actually, lay her heart on the table, probably talk to, the sensei and let him know her actual feelings, how she feels about being a Snow Woman, many things like that. I can't wait to see how she's dived into, because, I mean, so far, from what we've seen from these characters, like the Doahan, to, our vampire, and the succubus, the way these little traits of these characters have been dived into, it's just something you don't normally see from any type of series, especially in manga or an anime, and so I can't wait to see how a Snow Woman is depicted in this series, because there's been a lot of Snow Women in anime I've seen, harems in general, and I wonder how she will be handled. I mean, if we really do think about it, the actual demis these characters are, like vampire, succubus, Snow Woman, and all that, and Doahan, they're normal, demis we actually see in series. And the way they're being dived into, it's kind of like adding a different layer to them that we never thought was possible. So yeah, definitely one of my personal favorites of Winter of Anime 2017. Definitely going to continue watching this series, and I cannot wait to see the next episode. How do you feel about the series so far? Are you going to continue watching or dropping it? Since this is episode 3, this will determine if you do want to drop it or not. Please let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below how you feel about this series. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.